Welcome to the English Pod community. I'm Natasha, and today's episode is designed especially for intermediate English learners who want to improve both their listening and writing skills. How? By listening carefully to real-life stories and examples, you will not only understand spoken English better, but also get ideas and vocabulary to use when writing. Before we start, don't forget to press the like button if you find this episode helpful. Also, if you're new here, welcome. We upload videos every day to help you improve your English step by step. Now let me start by asking you a few questions. Have you ever faced a difficult decision at work or had to explain something important to a family member? How did you handle it? Think about those moments as we dive into today's stories. Let me tell you about a friend of mine, David. David recently moved to a new city for his job. On his first day, he faced a challenge that tested his communication skills. His manager asked him to prepare a report about the company's sales, but David was unsure how to organize the information clearly. Instead of feeling stuck, he decided to listen carefully to a few online presentations and read examples of good reports. Then he wrote his own version, using the new phrases and ideas he learned. The next day, his manager was impressed and gave him positive feedback. David's experience shows how listening and writing go hand in hand. Here is a question for you. When you listen to a story or a conversation, do you pay attention to the details, like names, places, and reasons? Or do you only catch the main idea? Try to focus on the details today because they make your understanding stronger. Another example is from Sarah, who wanted to improve her English for her job as a teacher. She started listening to podcasts like this one and wrote short summaries every day. Sometimes she wrote about her own life, sometimes about the stories she heard. Writing helped Sarah remember new words and grammar better. She also noticed that her speaking improved because she could express ideas more clearly. Have you ever tried writing after listening? If not, try it after this episode. Write a short paragraph about one story you heard here today. It can be about David, Sarah, or your own experience. Writing helps your brain practice and makes your listening even stronger. Now let's listen to a short story about a man named James. James and his wife moved to a small town. One day, James wanted to join a local community group, but he was nervous because he did not know anyone. He listened carefully to how people talked during the meeting and repeated some phrases quietly to himself. After a few meetings, James felt more confident. He started making friends and even gave a short talk about his hobbies. This story reminds us that listening closely helps us join conversations and feel part of a group. Think about this question. How do you feel when you listen to a new language? Excited, nervous, or curious? Feelings are part of learning, and they help us remember better. In our next story, Maria, a nurse, shared how listening helped her in her daily work. She told me that sometimes patients speak quickly or use unfamiliar words. Maria learned to ask questions politely and listen to the tone of voice, not just the words. This helped her understand the patient's feelings and give better care. Listening is not only about words, it is also about understanding emotions and meaning behind them. Take a moment now to think about how you can listen with more attention tomorrow. Maybe listen to a conversation between two people and try to notice their feelings, not only their words. Remember, every story you hear here in the English Pod community gives you new words, ideas, and ways to express yourself. Use these stories as practice. Listen, write, and try to speak what you have learned. The more you practice, the better your English will become. Now I want to ask you again. Which story did you like the most today? David's work challenge, Sarah's writing habit, James joining the group, or Maria's patient care? Write a few sentences about why you liked it. This is a great way to improve both listening and writing skills. Now let me tell you about Robert. Robert works in a small office where he helps customers every day. One morning, a customer came in feeling very upset. Robert didn't understand every word the customer said, but he listened carefully. He paid attention to the tone of voice, the body language, and the few words he did understand. Then he asked simple, polite questions to make sure he understood correctly. In the end, the customer left with a smile and even said, "Thank you for really listening." That day, Robert felt proud. He realized that good listening can help in difficult situations, even if you don't understand everything. Here's something to think about. When someone speaks quickly, do you try to catch every word, or do you listen for the main message? Listening for the feeling and message is often more helpful than understanding every single word. Let's talk about Emily. She is a mother of 2 children and also works part-time. Emily wanted to improve her English so she could help her kids with their school homework. She started listening to short stories and conversations during her daily chores, while cooking, cleaning, or walking. Later, she would write a short note about what she heard. This habit helped her improve slowly but surely. She didn't have extra time, but she used small moments in her day to learn. You can do the same. Even 5 minutes a day can make a big difference. Try this. After this episode, write down 3 new words or phrases you learned today. Then try to use them in your own sentences. That's how you move from listening to real learning. Next, let's hear about Mark. Mark is a bus driver in the city. Every day, he meets many people who ask for directions or have questions. At first, Mark found it hard to understand everyone because people spoke differently. But he decided to listen more carefully and repeat what he heard in his mind. He also started speaking in simple English, which helped people understand him too. Now, Mark says he enjoys his job more because he can talk with people easily. He says, "Listening helped me feel more connected to my city." Think about this. How can listening to others help you feel more connected to the people around you? Now here's Anna's story. Anna works in a bakery with her husband. Customers often come in and ask about different kinds of bread and cakes. At first, Anna didn't know all the right words, but she listened carefully to her husband talking with the customers. Then she started using the same phrases. Slowly, she became more confident. Now Anna greets the customers herself and even teaches new workers how to speak with kindness and clarity. This shows that listening is one of the first steps to speaking better. Listen, learn, then try it yourself. That's the path to success. Here's a short activity for you. Think of someone you know, a friend, a coworker, your husband or wife, and imagine a short conversation with them in English. What would you say? What would they reply? You can write it down or even say it out loud. This will help your brain connect listening with speaking and writing. And here's another story for you. This one is from Thomas. Thomas is learning English because he wants to start his own small repair business. He listens to customer service, conversations, and writes down how people solve problems politely. One time, a customer was unhappy because their door wasn't fixed properly. Thomas listened to the customer's complaint and answered in a calm, clear way. Because he had practiced polite English, he solved the issue and the customer returned later with a big smile. That day, Thomas felt like a real professional. Let's continue. You're doing great. Listening to real-life stories like these can truly help you grow your English. These examples show how everyday people improve just by making small, simple changes in their daily habits. The key is not how long you study, but how consistent and meaningful your practice is. Now let me tell you a story about a man named David. David is a school bus driver in a small town. Every morning he picks up children from their homes and takes them to school. In the beginning, David didn't speak much English, and he was worried that if something went wrong, he wouldn't be able to talk to the children or their parents. One day, a little boy named Tommy asked him, "Why are we late today?" David didn't understand the question and just smiled. Later, he felt bad because he wanted to answer. That evening, he searched for simple sentences and phrases used by school staff and parents. He found, "There was traffic and I'm sorry we're late." He repeated them aloud and wrote them in a small notebook he kept in his coat pocket. Each day, he added one or two new phrases. After a few weeks, he began to answer small questions from the children. He would say, "Good morning," "Have a nice day," or "Please sit down." It made the children smile. Soon, the parents started greeting him too. One mother told him, "Your English is getting better." That small comment gave him a big confidence boost. Now David not only drives the bus but also talks to the children and parents politely. He says that listening to short English conversations, repeating them aloud, and writing simple notes helped him a lot. Think about how David used real situations from his job. He learned phrases that were useful to him. You can do the same. What are some phrases you might hear at work or school? Try writing them down and using them in short sentences. This kind of practice helps your brain remember faster. Let me tell you about another person named Hannah. Hannah runs a small grocery store with her husband, Andrew. They live in a quiet town, but they often have visitors from other countries. Many tourists come in and ask questions in English like, "Do you sell bottled water?" or "Is this fruit fresh?" At first, Hannah couldn't answer well. She would smile, but felt unsure. Andrew started listening to English podcasts during his lunch break, and he encouraged Hannah to join him. They made it a habit. Every day after closing the shop, they listened to one story together. Then they practiced short dialogues. For example, "Yes, we have fresh apples today," or "The bottled water is near the back." They also started writing down questions they heard in the store. In the evening, they would find the meaning and write answers in English. After just 2 months, their communication improved a lot. One customer even said, "This is the best service I've had in this town." That made Hannah and Andrew feel proud. Listening daily and writing useful phrases helped them grow together. You can follow their example. If you work in a shop or talk to people during the day, try to remember 1 or 2 questions. Write them down, then write simple answers. Listen to real conversations about shops, groceries, and customer service. You will slowly get better. Now I want to tell you about a man named George. George works in a repair shop fixing air conditioners and heaters. Most of his customers speak English. One day, a customer named Sarah said, "The heater is making a strange noise." George did not understand the full sentence and just asked her to repeat. After that job, he decided to improve. He started listening to English conversations about repairs and tools. He would listen while working, using headphones. He paused when he heard a new word like leak, filter, or noisy. Then he wrote down the word, its meaning, and a sample sentence. For example, he heard, "The air filter needs to be replaced." He wrote it in his notebook and later said it out loud 5 times. He practiced with his wife during dinner. Each day, he added more phrases. Over time, when customers described problems, he could understand quickly. One customer told him, "You explain everything so clearly." George smiled and said, "I listen and practice every day." Now, English is not a problem for him. He feels confident and professional. Think about the tools or work items you use. Find the English words for them. Listen to real English instructions and repeat what you hear. Write simple sentences using those words. That is how George improved. And you can too. Let's hear about Emily next. Emily is a mother of 2 and also works part-time in a bakery. She talks to many customers each day. At first, she used only a few words like hello, thank you, and cash or card. But she wanted to be more friendly and helpful. She started listening to English stories early in the morning while making breakfast for her children. She listened to stories about people who work in bakeries and shops. She would hear sentences like, "Would you like your bread sliced?" Or, "This cake is made fresh today." She wrote them down in a notebook and tried using them with her customers. At first, she made mistakes, but people were kind and smiled. After some time, her sentences became smoother. One day, a visitor from another city came in and said, "You're very polite, and your English is easy to understand." That made Emily feel strong and happy. Her children also noticed and started learning with her. They would sit together at night, listen to a story, and each write one sentence. It became a fun habit in their home. This can be your habit too. Listen to a short story with your family or friends. Then talk about it using simple words. Write a few sentences. Laugh about your mistakes and try again. That's how real learning happens. Now let me tell you about Mark. Mark is a security guard at an office building. He stands at the entrance and checks people in. He often hears sentences like, "I have a meeting at 10," or "Can I speak to Mr. Brown?" At first, Mark used only a few words, but he wanted to improve. He started listening to English audio on his phone during breaks. He focused on topics like office talk and meeting people. He heard phrases like, "Do you have an appointment?" or "Let me check the list." Mark wrote each new phrase in his notebook and made flashcards. At night, he studied 5 cards and made one new sentence with each phrase. Slowly, he began to use them at work. Now he says, "Good morning, do you have an appointment?" Or, "Please wait one moment while I check." People respond politely and clearly. One day his manager said, "Your English is very good. Keep it up." That gave Mark the confidence to learn more. Try to be like Mark. Focus on the English you need every day. Listen to that kind of English. Repeat it. Write it. Practice with someone. Even 10 minutes each day can help. Now let me tell you the story of Lisa, a woman who works as a receptionist at a small dental clinic in the city. When Lisa first started working there, her English was very basic. She could only say a few things like, "Hello, please sit," or "Doctor is coming." But every day, many patients came in and asked her questions in English like, "How long is the wait?" or "Can I change my appointment?" Lisa could not understand everything, and she felt nervous. She wanted to help the patients better. So she decided to start improving her English in small ways. Each morning, Lisa listened to simple English podcasts during breakfast. She focused on conversations that happened in clinics, hospitals, and offices. She paused the audio when she heard new sentences and wrote them down in a notebook. For example, she heard the sentence, "The doctor will see you soon." She practiced this line by saying it many times. She also wrote it in a small diary that she kept in her bag. During quiet times at work, she would read those sentences again and say them in a low voice. One day, a patient came in and asked, "Is the doctor running late?" Lisa smiled and said, "Yes, I'm sorry. There is a short delay." The patient nodded and said, "Thank you for letting me know." That simple exchange made Lisa feel proud. She realized that even small sentences could help a lot in her job. Over time, she added more useful phrases like, "Please fill out this form," or "Your next appointment is on Thursday." Her coworkers noticed her progress and even asked her how she was learning. Lisa told them her method. She listens to real English every day, writes new sentences, repeats them, and uses them in her work. She said, "You don't need a teacher, you need daily practice." Now, Lisa speaks English confidently with patients and coworkers. She says that listening to everyday stories and writing short answers is what helped her the most. Now let's talk about Paul. Paul is a delivery driver for a small company that brings office supplies to businesses around town. Every day, Paul drives to different places, drops off boxes, and sometimes needs to speak to office workers. When he first got the job, he did not speak much English. He was nervous about simple questions like, "Where should I put this box?" Or, "Can you sign here?" Many people spoke quickly, and Paul could not follow everything. So he made a plan to improve. Paul started using his phone to listen to short English stories while driving. He played stories about people who do delivery work, visit offices, or help customers. He learned simple and useful phrases such as, "Where is the main entrance?" and "Here is your delivery." Every time he heard a new word, he repeated it out loud while driving. He also carried a small notebook with common phrases he heard on the job. During lunch breaks, he would read and practice those lines. One day, Paul had to deliver to a big office. A man at the desk asked, "Can you bring this to the second floor?" Paul replied, "Yes, I can. Where is the elevator?" The man smiled and gave directions. Paul was happy because he understood and answered without help. That moment gave him the confidence to keep going. Every week, Paul learned 10 new phrases and used them at work. After a few months, he could speak clearly with clients and office workers. Paul says that listening to real English while doing daily tasks helped him the most. He didn't stop working to study, he used his time wisely. If you have a job where you talk to people or move around a lot, you can do what Paul did. Listen to English, repeat what you hear, and write short sentences. It will help you speak clearly in real life. Now let's hear about Susan. Susan works as a cleaner in a hotel. Her job is to clean rooms, replace towels, and make sure everything is neat and tidy. Many of the hotel guests speak English, and they often ask questions like, "Can I get more towels?" or "What time is breakfast?" At first, Susan could not answer. She just smiled and walked away to find someone who could help. But she didn't like feeling helpless. She wanted to understand and respond. Susan began to listen to English while walking to work. She found short audio stories about hotel workers and guests. She listened carefully and repeated each sentence in a quiet voice. She also started writing down phrases like, "Breakfast is at 7 o'clock," and "I will bring more towels." Every night before sleeping, she would read the sentences and say them aloud. One morning, a guest said, "Excuse me, can I get an extra blanket?" Susan smiled and replied, "Yes, I will bring it now." The guest looked surprised and said, "Thank you. Your English is good." That moment gave Susan a lot of happiness. She began to feel confident. She made a goal to learn 5 new sentences every week. She used those sentences with guests, and they always responded kindly. Over time, she stopped feeling afraid to speak. Susan told her coworker, "If you listen to real conversations and practice every day, your English will improve." Her manager noticed the change and praised her during a meeting. Now Susan speaks clearly, understands guest requests, and even teaches new cleaners simple English phrases. Think about how Susan learned English that was useful for her job. She didn't learn hard grammar or big words. She learned by listening and repeating real-life language. You can do the same, even if your job is busy. Use your free time to listen, speak, and write. Now I want to tell you about John. John is a bus station worker. He helps people find the right buses, answers questions, and checks tickets. He hears a lot of English every day. Some people ask, "Which bus goes to London?" Others say, "How much is the ticket to Birmingham?" John used to answer with only 1 or 2 words, but he wanted to be better. He started listening to English conversations about travel and transportation. He paid attention to how people ask for help and how workers give directions. He wrote down useful phrases such as, "You can take bus number 12, and tickets are sold at the counter." He practiced these phrases at home and used them at work the next day. One afternoon, a woman said, "My bus is late. What should I do?" John replied, "Please wait. It will come in 10 minutes." The woman said, "Thank you for the help." John smiled. That small success made him feel strong. He kept listening, writing, and practicing. His English became smooth. His coworkers noticed and asked him to help new staff with their English. John says, "You can learn from real conversations. You just have to listen, write, and practice every day." That is the key. We also have the story of Carol. Carol is a cook in a small restaurant. She doesn't serve customers, but she often hears the waiters speak English. She wanted to understand what they were saying, so she started to listen to English about cooking and food. She learned words like grilled, fried, boiled, and ingredients. She also listened to how people order food in restaurants. She wrote short dialogues in her notebook and practiced reading them out loud. One day, a waiter said, "Table 3 wants the soup without salt." Carol answered, "Okay, no salt." The waiter smiled and said, "Thanks, you understood fast." That small moment gave Carol joy. She continued to practice and learned to speak clearly with her coworkers. Her kitchen team works better now because of her progress. Carol says, "You don't need to speak perfectly. You just need to understand and respond. That is good enough to start." All of these stories show us one thing. You can learn English from real-life situations. You don't need a classroom or a teacher. You need to listen every day. You need to write useful sentences. You need to say them out loud. And you need to use them when you can. Let's continue with more stories that can help you improve your English listening and writing skills. These stories are from everyday life and use simple language. You can listen to these stories, repeat the sentences, write down useful phrases, and practice them every day. This way, your English will get better slowly and naturally. Now let me share the story of David. David works as a customer support agent in a company that sells office chairs and desks. He answers phone calls and emails from customers who have questions about the products. When David first got this job, he was worried because his English was not very strong. He could understand some words, but it was hard for him to speak clearly or write polite messages. At first, he often asked his coworker James to help him write emails. James always helped him, but David wanted to do it on his own. David decided to change his routine. Every morning, he listened to English podcasts about customer service. He heard common phrases like, "Thank you for contacting us," and "I'm sorry for the inconvenience." He wrote these phrases in a notebook. He also listened to short telephone conversations between customers and workers. He paid attention to how people answered the phone, how they explained things, and how they solved problems. David practiced these lines out loud every day before work. One day, a customer called and said, "I received the wrong chair. I ordered a black one, but this is gray." David stayed calm. He replied, "I'm sorry about that. Let me check your order. We will send the correct chair as soon as possible." The customer said, "Thank you for your help." That moment gave David confidence. He felt that his practice was helping. After that, David started writing his own emails. He used simple but clear sentences like, "Your refund will be processed in 3 to 5 days," and "Please send us a photo of the damaged item." His writing improved because he listened to many examples of good English. Now he no longer needs help from James. In fact, he helps other new workers who are learning English. David says, "If you listen to how people speak in real situations and write what they say, you can slowly learn how to use English the right way. You don't have to rush. Just practice every day, and you will get better." Now let me tell you about Sarah. Sarah is a mother of 2 children, and she works part-time at a local bakery. She sells bread, cakes, and snacks to customers. Most of the customers speak English, and many of them ask questions like, "Is this bread fresh?" or "Do you have anything gluten-free?" When Sarah first started the job, she didn't know how to answer. She just smiled or asked her coworker to speak. But she felt bad because she wanted to talk to the customers herself. One day, she heard her daughter listening to a podcast about shops and markets. The podcast used simple English sentences like, "This bread was baked this morning, and we also have sugar-free cookies." Sarah started listening to that podcast every night. She wrote down every sentence that she thought was useful. The next day, she practiced saying them in front of a mirror. She wanted to sound friendly and confident. Soon, a customer asked, "Can I get a loaf of whole wheat bread?" Sarah smiled and replied, "Yes, here you go. It is fresh and soft." The customer said, "Thank you, that's perfect." Sarah felt proud. That was the first time she answered without help. After that, she kept listening and writing every day. She made flashcards with questions and answers. She carried them in her bag and practiced during her lunch break. Sarah now speaks clearly with all the customers. She can explain ingredients, talk about prices, and even suggest which bread to try. Her manager told her, "You're doing great with your English. Keep it up." Sarah says that listening to short real-life stories helped her understand how English is used in daily life. Writing the sentences helped her remember. Speaking them aloud gave her confidence. Let's move on to another story. This one is about Tom. Tom is a security guard at a shopping center. His job is to make sure people are safe, give directions, and answer questions from visitors. He does not have to speak much, but sometimes people come to him and say, "Where is the restroom?" Or, "Can you help me find the parking lot?" At first, Tom didn't know how to reply. He would just point in a direction or stay silent. He wanted to help people more, so he decided to work on his English. Tom found a podcast about city workers and security guards. He listened to short conversations like "the restroom is on the second floor" and "the elevator is near the exit." He listened to them many times until he could say them without looking at the script. He also wrote these lines in a notebook and read them during quiet times at work. One afternoon, a woman said, "Can you tell me where the kids' play area is?" Tom answered, "Yes, it is near the food court. Just go straight and turn right." The woman thanked him and smiled. Tom felt good. He had helped someone with clear English. After that, he kept learning more phrases like, "This area is for staff only," and "Please show your ID." These phrases helped him do his job better. Tom says, "If you want to speak better English, start with short, real sentences. Use the ones you hear every day. Repeat them, write them down, and use them when you can." Now let's talk about Helen. Helen is a nurse in a small clinic. She checks patients' temperature, gives medicine, and helps the doctor. Many patients speak English, and they often ask questions like, "When will the doctor come?" or "Can I take this medicine?" With food? At first, Helen didn't know how to answer. She used body language or asked someone else to explain. But Helen wanted to speak to patients directly. She started listening to podcasts made for nurses and clinic workers. These podcasts had examples of patient conversations like, "Please," "Wait in the lobby," or "Take this pill twice a day." Helen wrote those sentences in a notebook. She practiced them in the morning, during lunch, and before bed. One day, a man said, "My head hurts. What should I do?" Helen replied, "Please sit down. The doctor will see you soon." The man nodded and said, "Okay, thank you." Helen felt very proud. That was a small but important moment for her. Helen says, "Real stories help me understand English better than books. When I listen, I learn how people speak. When I write, I remember the sentences. When I speak, I feel more confident." Now let's hear about Peter. Peter is a school bus driver. Every day, he picks up children and drops them at school. Sometimes the children or their parents speak English. They say things like, "My child forgot his lunch," or "Can you wait 2 minutes?" Peter used to smile and nod, but he often didn't understand clearly. Peter began to listen to podcasts about drivers and schools. He learned sentences like, "Please wear your seatbelt," or "We will reach the school in 10 minutes. He repeated these sentences many times while driving. He also practiced with his wife at home. One morning, a parent said, "Please drop my daughter near the front gate." Peter replied, "Yes, I will stop at the front gate today." The parent smiled and said, "Thank you very much." That small exchange made Peter feel successful. Peter says, "Even if your job is simple, English can help you a lot. You just need to listen, write, and practice." These stories show us that real-life English is the best way to learn. Whether you work in a clinic, a bakery, a bus station, or an office, you can learn English from real conversations. You do not need long grammar books. You need real examples. Listen to them every day. Write what you hear. Say it out loud. Use it when you speak. This is the simple and powerful way to improve. Now let me tell you the story of Emma. Emma is a homemaker, and she lives in a small town with her husband and 2 children. Every day she prepares breakfast, helps her children get ready for school, cleans the house, and takes care of many small tasks. Emma always wanted to improve her English because sometimes she needed to speak with delivery workers, visit the local clinic, or help her children with schoolwork written in English. She also liked reading the labels on food or medicine, but many times she could not understand the words. Emma had tried studying from books before, but she found them too difficult. She did not enjoy learning grammar rules, so she decided to try something new. Every morning, after her husband and children left the house, she would make a cup of tea and listen to a podcast. The podcast had short conversations about shopping, visiting the doctor, talking to neighbors, or helping children with homework. Emma listened carefully. She would pause after each sentence and repeat it. She started writing sentences like, "Please wait for your turn. The doctor will see you now. Your order will arrive in 2 days. And this food contains dairy." She began writing these sentences on small pieces of paper and sticking them around her house. For example, she put a note on the fridge that said, "Check the expiry date," and on the medicine cabinet she wrote, "Take 2 tablets after you food." Every time she passed those notes, she read them aloud. Slowly, she began to remember the phrases. She used to feel shy speaking English with the delivery man. But now, when he came, she said, "Thank you for bringing this. Please put it near the door." He smiled and said, "You speak well." That small moment made her happy. One day, Emma's daughter came home and said, "Mom, can you help me with my English homework?" Emma used to say, "Ask your father," but this time she looked at the book. The sentence said, "My name is Lisa. I have a red ball." Emma helped her daughter write a few more sentences, like, "Lisa plays in the garden," and "She likes her new ball." Her daughter said, "Wow, Mom, you are good at this." Emma smiled and felt very proud. Emma now speaks English in simple ways with confidence. She says, "You don't have to learn everything at once. Just learn one small thing every day. Listen to real conversations, repeat them, write them down, read them out loud. English will become easier when you make it part of your daily life." Now let us talk about John. John works at a local post office. Every day, many people come to send letters, packages, and documents. Some people speak English. They ask questions like, "How much does it cost to send this?" Or, "Can I get a tracking number?" At first, John only used simple words like yes or no, or he would ask a coworker to help. But John wanted to talk to customers in English without fear. He wanted to give them clear answers and make them feel comfortable. John found a podcast that focused on real-life work conversations. Every evening after work, he would sit in his room, put on his headphones, and listen to a few minutes. The podcast had workers explaining things like, "This package will arrive in 3 days," or "Please fill out this form." John would pause the audio, repeat the sentences, and then write them in a notebook. He even practiced them with his wife in the evening. The next day at work, a customer came in and asked, "Can I send this letter to London?" John replied, "Yes. Please place the letter on the scale. It will cost $3. The customer smiled and said, "Thank you." John felt proud. He knew he was learning. Slowly, he added more phrases to his notebook, like, "Please sign here. Do you want insurance?" And "Your receipt is inside the envelope." John also started helping other coworkers who were not confident in English. He said, "You can learn just by listening every day. You don't need to go to school. Listen to real conversations. Repeat them, write them, then use them in your job. Now John is more confident. He speaks clearly and politely. Customers thank him for his good service, and he enjoys his work more. Now let us hear about Linda. Linda works in a school as a cleaner. She is responsible for cleaning the classrooms, arranging chairs, and keeping the school neat. Linda does not talk a lot, but sometimes the teachers ask her questions in English, like, "Can you clean room 5 now?" Or "Do we have more tissue boxes?" In the past, Linda only nodded or used her hands to explain. But one day, she decided she wanted to learn how to reply properly in English. She started by listening to English podcasts made for school staff. The conversations were short and easy to understand. She learned sentences like, "Yes, I will clean it now. There are more boxes in the storage room, and I finished cleaning the office." Linda repeated the sentences every morning before she left for work. She practiced speaking slowly and clearly. She even recorded her voice on her phone and listened to it again to check how she sounded. Soon, a teacher asked, "Can you help?" "Me move these chairs?" Linda replied. "Yes, I will help now." The teacher said, "Thank you." Another day, the principal asked, "Did you clean the library?" Linda replied, "Yes, it is clean now." These small conversations gave her great joy. She felt that she was improving, little by little. Linda also used a notebook to write down new words she heard at school, like chalk, board, supplies, and bins. She looked them up later and practiced using them in sentences. Her English is still simple, but she now speaks with more confidence. Linda says, "You don't need to speak perfectly, you just need to try. Listen to real people, repeat what they say, and write it down. That is the best way to learn." Now let's talk about Daniel. Daniel is a construction worker. He works on buildings, roads, and small repair jobs. He uses tools, follows instructions, and works with many people from different countries. Many of his co-workers speak English. The team leader often gives instructions like, "Carry this box to the truck," or "Put the bricks near the wall." In the beginning, Daniel didn't understand these commands. He had to watch what others did and follow them. But he wanted to understand the instructions without waiting or guessing. He found a podcast for workers in the building industry. It had useful expressions like, "Wear your safety helmet," "Use the ladder carefully," and "The cement will dry in 1 hour." He listened to the podcast during his break time. He also recorded important phrases on his phone and listened to them on the way to work. He practiced speaking by repeating the instructions he heard. One day, the team leader said, "Daniel, bring me the toolbox from the van." Daniel quickly replied, "Yes, I will get it now." The team leader smiled and said, "Good job." That day, Daniel felt proud. He was using English at work. He kept learning new phrases like, "Mix the sand and water," "Watch your step," and "This wall is not straight." Every time he used a new sentence, he felt stronger. Now Daniel helps translate simple instructions for new workers. He says, "Listening to real-life English helps me learn faster. I write what I hear, say it many times, and use it at work. That is how I improved." These stories of Emma, John, Linda, and Daniel show us that real-life English is powerful. If you listen to how people speak in simple situations, and if you write those sentences and say them every day, you will improve your English without stress. You do not need big books or difficult lessons. You just need to listen, repeat, and write. English will become part of your life. If you keep going step by step, you will speak better, write better, and feel more confident in everything you do. I have more stories for you. Let's continue learning together. Let me share another story about Mark. Mark works in a small grocery store in his neighborhood. Every day, many customers come to buy fruits, vegetables, and other things. Mark's job is to help customers find what they want, take money at the counter, and pack the groceries. When Mark started, he found it difficult to understand some customers. Some customers spoke quickly or used words he did not know. He felt nervous and sometimes made mistakes while giving change or answering questions. Mark wanted to improve his English to do his job better. He decided to listen to English podcasts that had everyday conversations about shopping and customer service. He listened during his breaks and after work. The podcasts taught him simple sentences like, "Can I help you? How many do you want? That will be $5. Mark wrote these sentences in a small notebook. He read them many times and practiced saying them out loud. At first, it was hard to remember all the words, but every day he got better. One day, a customer asked Mark, "Do you have fresh apples?" Mark replied, "Yes, we have fresh apples. They are on aisle 3. The customer smiled and said, "Thank you." Mark felt happy because he understood the question and gave the right answer. He learned other sentences like, "We have tomatoes and potatoes. The price is on the label, and would you like a bag?" Mark used these sentences with different customers. Slowly, he felt more confident. Mark also listened to podcasts about how to be polite with customers. He learned phrases like, "Thank you for shopping with us. Please come again," and "Have a nice day." He practiced these phrases every day. Mark's manager noticed the change. The manager said, "Mark, you are doing a great job speaking English. Customers are happy." This made Mark proud. He said, "Listening and practicing every day helped me improve." Now let us talk about Sarah. Sarah is a nurse assistant at a local clinic. She helps nurses and doctors by preparing rooms, taking care of patients, and giving information. Many patients speak English, and Sarah needs to understand their questions and give simple answers. At first, Sarah was shy because she was afraid of making mistakes. She listened carefully and tried to remember important words. Sarah found a podcast that focused on conversations in hospitals and clinics. The podcast had short dialogues like, "How do you feel today? Do you have any pain? And please, wait here." Sarah listened to the dialogues every day. She wrote down new words and phrases in her notebook. She practiced repeating the sentences loudly. Sarah also asked her husband to help her practice. They took turns asking and answering questions in English. One day, a patient asked Sarah, "Where is the bathroom?" Sarah smiled and said, "The bathroom is next to the waiting room." The patient thanked her. Sarah felt proud because she was able to help. Sarah also learned to say, "The doctor will see you soon. Please fill out this form." And "Take your medicine twice a day." She used these phrases every day at work. Sarah's confidence grew slowly. She said, "Listening to real conversations helped me understand what patients say. Writing and repeating the sentences made me more comfortable speaking English." Sarah is still learning, but now she can talk to many patients without fear. Now I will tell you about James. James is a taxi driver. Every day he drives different people to work, school, or the airport. Many passengers speak English, and James needs to talk with them. He asks questions like, "Where do you want to go? And do you want me to wait here?" When James started, he only knew a few words in English. He felt nervous talking to passengers. James found an English podcast that had conversations between taxi drivers and passengers. The podcast taught sentences like, "Please fasten your seatbelt. It will take about 20 minutes. And do you want to pay by cash or card?" James listened to the podcast while driving. He repeated the sentences many times. He also wrote the sentences in a small notebook and read them during breaks. One day, a passenger said, "Can you take me to the train station?" James answered, "Yes, I can take you to the train station. Please get in." The passenger smiled and said, "Thank you." James was happy because he used English well. He learned more sentences like, "The traffic is heavy today. Would you like me to turn on the air conditioner?" And "This is your stop." James practiced these sentences every day. James also learned polite phrases like, "Thank you for choosing my taxi. Have a nice day," and "Please call me if you need a ride again." His passengers were happy with his polite English. James said, "Listening and repeating helped me learn English for my job. It made my work easier and my passengers comfortable." Now let's talk about Laura. Laura works in a bakery. She bakes bread, cakes, and cookies. She also sells the baked goods to customers. Many customers ask questions in English like, "Do you have fresh bread?" or "How much is this cake?" Laura wanted to speak English well to help customers better. Laura listened to podcasts with short conversations about shopping and food. The podcast taught her sentences like, "This bread is fresh," "The cake costs $10," and "Would you like a bag?" Laura wrote these sentences on paper and practiced them every day. She repeated the sentences loudly at home. Laura also practiced with her husband, who helped correct her pronunciation. One busy day, many customers came to the bakery. Laura used the sentences she learned. She said, "Yes, the bread is fresh today. This cake is chocolate flavored, and would you like to pay now?" Customers smiled and said thank you. Laura felt more confident speaking English. Laura also learned how to say polite phrases, like, "Thank you for your purchase. Please visit us again and have a great day." She practiced these phrases every day. Laura said, "Listening to real conversations helped me learn useful sentences. Writing and repeating the sentences made me ready to speak with customers." These stories of Mark, Sarah, James, and Laura show us that English is easier when we listen and practice real conversations. When you hear the sentences many times, write them down and say them yourself. You will feel more confident. You can learn English in simple steps. Just listen, write, and speak. This is the best way to improve your English. I will share more stories now to help you learn even more. Let me now tell you a long and simple story about a man named David and how learning English changed his life at work and at home. David lives in a small town and works in a hardware store. He sells tools, paint, light bulbs, and other things people use to fix their homes. Every day, many customers come in and ask questions. Some customers want to know how to use a tool. Others want to know if something is in stock. David used to feel shy because he could not answer in English very well. He knew a few words, but he could not make full sentences. When customers spoke fast, he could not understand. One day, David said to himself, "I need to learn English better. If I speak well, I can help more people and feel good about my job." So David started a small routine. Every morning, before work, he listened to an English podcast for 20 minutes. The podcast was about common store conversations. It had dialogues, like, "Do you need help finding something?" Or, "This item is out of stock, but we will get more next week." David listened carefully and wrote down every new word. He also wrote down full sentences that he thought were useful. After work, David would sit at the kitchen table and read the sentences out loud. He practiced saying them again and again. He also asked his wife, Emily, to help him. She asked questions. In English like, "Do you have a hammer?" or "How much is this drill?" David tried to answer in full sentences. At first, he made many mistakes. He forgot words or said things in the wrong order. But Emily was patient. She smiled and said, "Keep trying, you are doing well." Every day, David felt a little more confident. One day, a customer came into the store and said, "I need help choosing a good paint for my kitchen." David smiled and said, "Sure, we have different types of paint. Do you want a bright color or a soft color?" The customer said, "A soft color, please." David showed him 3 colors and said, "These are good for kitchens. They are easy to clean." The customer said, "Thank you. I will take the blue one." David felt happy. He was able to understand the question and give a clear answer. He told Emily that night, "Today I helped a customer in full English sentences. I was not nervous. I knew what to say." After that, David started helping more customers. He said things like, "This screwdriver is good for small jobs, and we have more hammers in the back. Let me get one for you." When customers said thank you, David always replied, "You are welcome. Have a good day." His manager saw that David was speaking English more. One day, the manager said, "David, I see you are helping many customers in English. I want you to train the new workers." David was surprised but also proud. He said, "Thank you. I will try my best." Now David trains new workers in the store. He shows them how to talk to customers. He tells them to listen carefully and speak slowly. He also shares his notebook with useful English sentences. Some workers are shy, just like David was. He tells them, "You can do it. Just listen, repeat, and write. One day you will speak well too." David also uses English at home. He helps his children with their homework. He reads simple English books with them. He says, "If I can learn English, you can too." His family is proud of him. They say, "You worked hard and now you speak with confidence." Let me now tell you about a woman named Rachel. Rachel is a mother of 2, and she works as a receptionist at a dentist's office. Her job is to welcome patients, ask for their names, and help them fill out forms. She also needs to tell them when the dentist is ready. In the past, Rachel only spoke her first language. When English-speaking patients came, she smiled but did not say much. She was afraid to say the wrong thing. Rachel decided to change this. She found a podcast for people working in offices. The podcast had short and simple conversations. She learned sentences like, "Please sign your name here. The dentist will see you in a few minutes." And, "Do you have an appointment today?" Rachel wrote these down and practiced every day. She stood in front of a mirror and said the sentences again and again. Rachel also made flashcards. On one side, she wrote a question like, "What is your phone number?" And on the other side, she wrote the meaning in her language. Every evening, she looked at the cards and tested herself. Her husband Thomas also helped her. He asked her questions and waited for her to answer. Sometimes she needed time, but slowly she became faster. One day, a new patient came in and said, "Hi, I have an appointment at 3 o'clock. Rachel smiled and said, "Welcome. Can you please fill out this form?" The patient said, "Sure." Rachel then asked, "Do you have insurance?" The patient said, "Yes." Rachel smiled again and said, "Thank you. The dentist will see you soon." After the patient sat down, Rachel felt very good. She said to herself, "I did it. I spoke English clearly." Rachel started using more English at work. When the phone rang, she answered, "Good morning, this is the dentist's office. How can I help you?" She learned to spell names, give times, and explain small things like, "Please come 10 minutes early," or "Bring your ID." The dentist noticed Rachel's progress. He said, "You are doing a great job. You speak clearly and kindly." Rachel said, "It is because I practice every day. I listen, write, and speak." She felt proud. She also helped her coworker, Lisa, who was new and shy. Rachel shared her flashcards and said, "Start small. You can do this." At home, Rachel used English with her children. She asked them, "What did you do at school today?" And, "You help me set the table?" They answered in English and she smiled. Rachel said, "Learning English helped me at work and at home. I am not afraid anymore." Learning English is not fast or easy. Now I will tell you another story about a man named Michael. Michael is a delivery driver. He drives a big truck and delivers packages to many places every day. His job is very busy. Sometimes he meets new people at different houses. He needs to talk to them to give the packages and get their signatures. Michael used to feel nervous because his English was not very good. He knew some words but was not sure how to speak in full sentences. Sometimes people asked questions, and Michael did not understand. This made him feel uncomfortable. Michael wanted to improve his English. He thought, "If I speak better, I can do my job faster and feel more confident." So, Michael started to listen to English stories every day in the morning while he ate breakfast. These stories were simple and talked about daily life situations. He listened to people talking about their day, what they bought, or what they cooked. Michael wrote down new words and sentences that he heard. For example, he learned how to say, "Can you please sign here?" And, "Is this package for Mr. Johnson?" After work, Michael practiced these sentences. He read them out loud many times. He also used his phone to record his voice and listened to it. Sometimes he sounded slow or made mistakes, but he did not stop. He knew practice was important. Michael's wife, Sarah, helped him too. She asked him questions like, "Did you deliver all the packages today?" And, "Did anyone ask you a question?" Michael answered in simple sentences. Sarah was happy to help and said, "You are improving every day." One day, Michael had to deliver a package to an elderly woman named Mrs. Parker. When he arrived, she said, "Hello, Michael. Is this the package I ordered?" Michael smiled and said, "Yes, Mrs. Parker. Can you please sign here?" Mrs. Parker signed the paper, and Michael said, "Thank you. Have a nice day." Mrs. Parker smiled and said, "You speak English very well now." Michael felt proud. This was the first time someone told him that his English was good. Another day, Michael had a problem with a package. The address was wrong. He called the company and said, "Hello, I have a problem with a delivery. The address is not correct." The person on the phone explained how to fix it. Michael listened carefully and repeated the instructions. He said, "Thank you. I will try again." Michael was happy because he could speak on the phone in English without trouble. At home, Michael tried to use English with Sarah and their children. He asked simple questions like, "What do you want for dinner?" And, "Can you help me with the groceries?" His children answered in English too. They were learning at school and helped Michael practice. Michael said, "I want to speak English better for my job and my family." Sarah smiled and said, "You are doing a great job. Keep going." Now I want to tell you about a woman named Linda. Linda is a nurse. She works at a clinic and helps many patients every day. Linda speaks English, but sometimes she finds it hard to understand patients who speak fast or have different accents. She wants to understand better so she can help patients quickly and safely. Linda started listening to English podcasts about health and clinics. She listened to conversations between doctors, nurses, and patients. She wrote down important words like appointment, symptoms, and prescription. Linda also learned useful sentences like, "How do you feel today?" and "Do you have any allergies?" She practiced saying these sentences with her husband, Mark. Mark asked her questions and she answered. Sometimes Mark gave Linda feedback to help her speak more clearly. At work, Linda used her new skills. When a patient came with a headache, she asked, "When did the headache start?" The patient said, "Yesterday." Linda wrote this information carefully. She said, "I will tell the doctor." The patient thanked Linda for asking questions clearly. Linda felt confident. Sometimes patients ask questions too. One patient asked, "What time is my next appointment?" Linda answered, "Your next appointment is on Thursday at 10 a.m. The patient smiled and said, "Thank you." Linda was happy because she could understand and answer well. Linda's manager noticed her improvement. The manager said, "Linda, you are communicating better with patients." This helps the clinic run smoothly. Linda thanked her manager. She said, "I practice every day and listen to English podcasts. It helps a lot." At home, Linda and Mark talk about their day in English. They say, "I helped a patient today," or "The doctor was busy." Their children also speak English at home and school. Linda said, "Speaking English well helps me at work and with my family." I will tell you about one more person. His name is James. James is a teacher. He teaches young children in a school. His students speak different languages, but James speaks only English in the classroom. Sometimes students ask questions, and James needs to explain clearly. James wanted to improve his English to explain things better. James listened to English stories about school and teaching. He learned new words like homework, classroom, and lesson. He wrote down sentences like, "Please open your books," and "Do you understand the homework?" James practiced these sentences every day. He also recorded himself and listened to the recordings. He tried to speak slowly and clearly. In the classroom, James used these sentences. He said, "Please be quiet and listen carefully." The students followed his instructions. When a student did not understand, James explained again using simple words. One student asked, "What is homework?" James said, "Homework is work you do at home." The student smiled and said, "Thank you, teacher." James felt happy. James talked to other teachers in English too. They shared ideas about teaching and helping students. James said, "I am learning English to be a better teacher." Other teachers said, "You are doing well." At home, James talked with his wife, Anna. He told her about his day and what he taught. Anna listened and helped him practice English. James said, "Speaking English well helps me teach better and talk with friends." Anna said, "You are working hard, and it shows." Listening to stories like these helps you learn English in a simple way. When you hear how people use English every day, you understand more. Writing new words and sentences helps your memory. Speaking out loud and practicing with family or friends makes you confident. Now, think about your daily life. What jobs or places do you visit? What kind of English do you need there? You can listen to podcasts, write down useful phrases, and practice every day. This will help you improve your listening and speaking skills slowly but surely. Let me tell you more about people who improve their English by listening and practicing every day. This will help you understand how small steps can make a big difference in your English skills. There is a man named David. David works as a security guard at a big office building. His job is to watch the entrances and make sure everything is safe. He talks to many people every day, such as employees, visitors, and delivery drivers. At first, David found it hard to understand people when they spoke quickly. Sometimes he missed important information, like the name of a visitor or the time they should leave. This made David worried because he wanted to do his job well. David decided to improve his English by listening to daily news podcasts in English. He listened to short stories about weather, traffic, or local events. At first, the news was difficult to understand because the speakers talked fast and used some difficult words. But David did not give up. He listened many times and wrote down new words and sentences. For example, he learned how to say, "May I see your ID, please?" and "You cannot enter this area after 6 p.m." After work, David practiced speaking these sentences with his wife, Emily. Emily helped him by acting like a visitor or employee. David asked questions and gave instructions. Sometimes Emily pretended to be confused, and David tried to explain again in simple words. They did this every day for 1 hour. David said, "It is not easy, but I feel better when I speak English." Emily said, "You are doing great. Practice will help you." One day, a visitor came late to the office. David said, "I am sorry, the building is closed now." The visitor asked, "Can I speak to the manager?" David answered, "The manager is not here. Please come back tomorrow." The visitor thanked David politely. David felt proud because he spoke clearly and politely. He thought, "I am learning English well." Another story is about Susan. Susan is a shop assistant in a clothing store. She talks to customers every day and helps them find clothes. Susan wanted to improve her English so she could understand customers better and explain things clearly. Susan listened to English stories about shopping and customer service. She learned words like size, price, and discount. She also learned sentences such as, "Can I help you?" and "Do you want to try this on?" Susan practiced these sentences at home with her husband, John. John pretended to be a customer and asked questions. Susan answered, "Yes, we have. This in blue and red." Or, "The price is $20. John said, "You sound confident now." Susan smiled and said, "I practice every day. It is helping me a lot." At work, Susan helped a customer named Mr. Lewis. He wanted a jacket in a large size. Susan said, "Let me check in the back." She found the jacket and gave it to Mr. Lewis. He asked, "Can I pay with a card?" Susan said, "Yes, you can. Pay here." Mr. Lewis smiled and said, "Thank you for your help." Susan felt happy because she understood and answered well. Susan's manager noticed her improvement. The manager said, "Susan, you speak English very well now. Customers like your help." Susan thanked her manager and said, "I will keep practicing." Now, I want to tell you about a man named Robert. Robert is a cook in a small restaurant. He works in the kitchen and sometimes talks to customers. Robert wanted to improve his English to understand customer orders better and talk to his colleagues. Robert listened to English conversations about food, cooking, and restaurants. He learned words like menu, order, and ingredients. He also learned sentences like, "What would you like to eat?" And, do you have any allergies? Robert practiced these sentences with his wife, Lisa. Lisa pretended to be a customer and ordered food. Robert answered, "Yes, we have chicken and fish today." Lisa asked, "Is this dish spicy?" Robert said, "No, it is not spicy." They practiced every evening after dinner. Robert said, "Speaking English helps me at work." Lisa said, "You are improving fast." At work, Robert took an order from a customer named Mr. Green. Mr. Green said, "I want a salad and a chicken sandwich." Robert repeated, "A salad and a chicken sandwich. Anything to drink?" Mr. Green said, "Yes, a glass of water." Robert told the waiter. The food was ready, and Mr. Green said, "Thank you." Robert smiled because he understood the order and helped the customer. Robert also talked to his colleagues in English. They talked about work and food. Robert said, "I want to learn more English to do better." His colleagues said, "You are doing great." These stories show how people can improve their English by listening, writing, and practicing every day. When you listen to real-life stories, you learn how people use English in their jobs and daily life. Writing new words and sentences helps you remember. Speaking with family or friends helps you become more confident. Think about your daily life and job. What English do you need? You can listen to podcasts, write useful phrases, and practice speaking. Small steps every day will help you improve your English slowly but surely. Let me share more about how listening and practice help improve English. This is very important. When you listen carefully, you learn new words and how people speak in real life. Writing what you hear helps you remember the words. Speaking with others makes your English stronger. These three things, listening, writing, and speaking, work together to help you improve. There is a woman named Anna. Anna works in a library. Her job is to help people find books and answer their questions. Anna wanted to speak English better so she could help more people. She started listening to English stories about everyday life and work. At first, she found it hard to understand all the words. The speakers talked fast and used words she did not know. But Anna was patient. She listened to the stories again and again. She wrote down new words like catalog, borrow, and return. She also wrote sentences such as, "Can I help you find a book?" and "When is the book due?" Anna practiced speaking these sentences with her husband, Mark. Mark helped by asking questions like a library visitor. Anna answered slowly at first, then she spoke faster each day. Mark said, "You sound clearer now." Anna said, "I am practicing every day after work." One day a visitor asked Anna, "Where can I find books about history?" Anna said, "The history books are on the second floor." The visitor smiled and thanked her. Anna felt happy because she spoke well. Another person who improved English is James. James works in a bakery. He sells bread, cakes, and coffee. James wanted to talk better to his customers. He listened to English stories about shopping and food. He learned words like fresh, sweet, and baked. He learned sentences such as, "Would you like a cup of coffee?" and "This cake is very popular." James practiced these sentences with his wife, Sarah. Sarah pretended to be a customer and asked questions. James answered, "Yes, we have fresh bread every morning," or "Would you like to try this cake?" Sarah said, "You sound good now." James said, "I listen and speak every day." At work, James helped a customer named Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown said, "I want 2 loaves of bread and a cup of coffee." James said, 2 loaves of bread and 1 coffee. Anything else?" Mr. Brown said, No, thank you. James told the cashier the order. Mr. Brown smiled and said, "Thank you for your help." James felt proud. Now I want to tell you about a woman named Laura. Laura is a nurse in a hospital. She talks to many patients and doctors every day. Laura wanted to understand English better to help her patients. She listened to English stories about health and hospital work. She learned words like medicine, appointment, and symptoms. She learned sentences such as, "Do you feel pain?" and "When did you start feeling?" Laura practiced these sentences with her husband, Peter. Peter pretended to be a patient and asked questions. Laura answered, "Take this medicine twice a day," or "Please come back in 1 week." They practiced every night. Laura said, "Speaking English helps me do my job better." Peter said, "You are improving every day." At work, Laura talked to a patient named Mrs. Collins. Mrs. Collins said, "I have a headache and fever." Laura asked, "How long have you had these symptoms?" Mrs. Collins answered, "For 3 days." Laura gave instructions in English. Mrs. Collins thanked her. Laura felt happy because she helped the patient. These stories show how people from different jobs improve their English by listening, writing, and speaking. When you listen to real stories, you hear English in real situations. Writing new words and sentences helps you remember. Practicing speaking with family or friends helps you feel confident. Try to listen every day. Write new words and phrases. Speak English with someone. You will see improvement over time. Remember, learning English is a journey. Take small steps. Every day. Be patient and keep trying. Think about your own daily life. What English do you need? What words and sentences can help you? Use stories and examples to practice. You will get better with each day. Keep listening and practicing. Your English will improve. This is how you become confident and comfortable in English. Real stories help you learn how people talk. Writing helps your memory. Speaking makes your skills strong. These steps are very important. Listening, writing, and speaking are the best ways to learn English. Practice with stories about work, shopping, health, and daily life. These stories teach useful words and phrases. Practice every day and you will see the difference. Remember, you are not alone. Many people learn English the same way. By listening carefully and practicing, you will get better. Use the stories I shared as examples. Try to speak English in your daily life. You can do this. Keep practicing and keep listening. Your English will get better every day. This will help you in your work and life. It will help you talk to people and understand them better. Keep writing new words and sentences. Speak with family or friends. Try to use English every day. You will feel more confident and happy. Let's talk more about how you can improve your English by listening and practicing every day. When you listen to English, you hear the way people speak naturally. You hear new words, new sentences, and new ideas. This is very helpful because English in books is sometimes different from English people use in real life. Listening to real stories helps you learn how to use English in daily situations. It also helps you understand different accents and ways people speak. When you listen, try to hear the meaning of the words, not just the words themselves. Think about what the person is talking about and how the story goes. This will help your brain understand English better. After listening, it is important to write. Writing helps you remember new words and phrases. For example, if you hear the word appointment, write it down. Then write a sentence using that word. For example, I have an appointment with the doctor tomorrow. Writing sentences like this helps you use new words correctly. It also makes your brain remember the words better than just listening once. When you write, you can also check if the spelling and grammar are correct. If you are not sure, you can look it up or ask someone to help. Writing every day, even a few sentences, will make your English stronger. Speaking is the third important part. After you listen and write, try to speak what you learned. Speaking helps you practice pronunciation and fluency. You can practice with a friend, family member, or even by yourself. If you practice alone, try to speak out loud. Pretend you are talking to someone. This will help you feel more confident when you speak to real people. For example, if you learned the sentence, "Can I help you find a book?" Practice saying it many times. Then try to say it faster and more naturally. Speaking often will help you use English without thinking too much. This is very important for everyday conversation. Let me tell you about a man named David. David works in a small coffee shop. He wanted to speak English better to talk to customers and his coworkers. David started listening to stories about work and daily life. One story was about a man who went to a store to buy groceries. David listened to the story many times. He wrote down words like checkout, receipt, and change. He also wrote sentences like, "Do you have any fresh bread?" and "How much does this cost?" David practiced these sentences every day. He practiced with his wife, Emily. Emily asked questions like a customer. David answered slowly at first, but then he spoke faster and more clearly. One day, a customer came to David's shop. The customer asked, "Do you have any almond milk?" David said, "Yes, we have almond milk. It is in the fridge." The customer smiled and said, "Thank you very much." David felt happy and proud. He knew his practice was helping him speak better English. David's story shows how listening, writing, and speaking work together to improve English. Another example is a woman named Sarah. Sarah is a teacher. She teaches children in a school. Sarah wanted to improve her English to explain lessons better and talk with parents. She listened to stories about school and family life. She wrote down new words like homework, schedule, and parent. Meeting. Sarah also wrote sentences like, "Please finish your homework by Friday," and "There will be a parent meeting next week." She practiced these sentences with her husband, John. John helped by asking questions and listening carefully. Sarah's practice helped her speak clearly at school. One day, a parent asked Sarah, "When is the next parent meeting?" Sarah answered, "The meeting is next Thursday at 5 p.m. The parent said, "Thank you for the information." Sarah felt confident and happy. She knew that practicing listening, writing, and speaking every day helped her do better work. Now think about your own life. What are some situations where you need to speak English? Maybe you work in a store, or maybe you want to talk with your neighbors or coworkers. Think about what words and sentences you need in these situations. Then find stories or conversations about these topics. Listen carefully to the stories. Write down the new words and sentences. Practice speaking them every day. This is the best way to improve your English. Sometimes learning English can be difficult. You might not understand everything at first. This is normal. Keep listening and practicing. It will get easier over time. You will start to understand more words and sentences. You will start to speak more naturally. Do not worry if you make mistakes. Making mistakes is part of learning. The important thing is to keep trying every day. Remember, listening to stories about real life helps you learn English that you can use. Writing new words and sentences helps your memory. Speaking with others or by yourself builds your confidence. These steps are simple but very effective. You can use your phone or computer to find English stories or conversations about many topics. You can listen to news, interviews, or simple stories. Find something you like and listen to it many times. Write new words and practice speaking them. You will see your English get better day by day. Also, try to speak English every day. Talk about your day, your work, or your plans. Use the new words and sentences you learned. Speaking often will help you feel comfortable with English. You will be able to understand others better and talk more easily. Practice is very important. Do not wait to be perfect. Start speaking now. Make mistakes and learn from them. Speak with friends, family, or colleagues. If you do not have someone to speak with, talk to yourself. Speak out loud. This will help you speak better when you talk to real people. Let us keep going with our topic about learning English through real-life stories and daily practice. This time, I want to share more detailed examples and situations that you can easily imagine in your daily life. These examples will help you improve your listening and writing skills. When you hear how people talk in real situations, it becomes easier to understand and remember the words they use. You can use the same words when you speak or write. Let me tell you about a woman named Emma. She works at a bakery in a small town. Every morning, Emma opens the shop at 6 o'clock. She arranges the bread, cakes, and cookies on the shelves. Many customers come in to buy breakfast items, and Emma wants to speak clearly in English to help them. So she started listening to short English conversations about shops and customer service. One story she listened to was about a man who went to a bakery and asked for a birthday cake. The conversation included phrases like, "How much is this?" and "Do you have this in a smaller size?" Emma wrote these questions in a notebook and practiced them. She also listened to the story again and again until she understood each sentence. She practiced these sentences with her husband, Daniel, every evening. He played the role of the customer. He asked for different items, and Emma responded politely. For example, Daniel would say, "Can I have 2 croissants and 1 coffee, please?" Then Emma would reply, "Yes, that will be $5. Would you like sugar with your coffee?" Practicing in this way helped her speak more clearly and feel more comfortable using English at work. One morning, a tourist entered her bakery and asked, "Do you have any gluten-free bread?" Emma smiled and said, "Yes, we have fresh gluten-free bread today. It is on the top shelf." The customer thanked her and bought a loaf. After the tourist left, Emma felt very happy. She had used the English words she had learned from the story and practice. This made her feel more confident and proud. Now think about another example. There is a man named Thomas who works as a delivery driver. Every day he drives to different houses and offices to deliver packages. Sometimes he needs to speak English with people when they ask about their deliveries. Thomas wanted to feel more confident, so he started listening to English stories about people giving directions and asking questions about packages. One story was about a woman who received the wrong package. She called customer service and said, "I received the wrong item. Can you please help me?" The customer service person said, "Yes, I am sorry about that. I will send someone to pick it up today." Thomas listened to this story many times. He wrote down the words wrong item, pick it up, and customer service. He wrote example sentences like, "I will pick up your package at 3 p.m. and sorry, there was a mistake in the delivery." Thomas also practiced these sentences with his wife, Anna. She pretended to be the customer, and Thomas answered politely and clearly. Every night they practiced for 30 minutes. One day while delivering a package, a man told Thomas, "This is not my name on the box." Thomas replied, "I am sorry about that. Let me check the address again." Looked at the box and said, "Yes, it looks like this was meant for your neighbor. I will deliver it to the correct house now." The man smiled and said, "Thank you." That moment made Thomas realize how helpful his listening and writing practice had been. By listening to real situations, he had learned useful phrases and sentences that helped him in his job. Now let us talk about Claire. She is a receptionist at a small clinic. Her job is to welcome patients, answer phone calls, and make appointments. When she started working there, her English was not strong. She wanted to understand patients better and give them clear information. So she started listening to English stories about hospitals and clinics. One of the stories she listened to was about a patient who called the clinic and said, "I would like to make an appointment with Dr. Smith." The receptionist said, "Sure. Are you free this Friday at 10 a.m.? The patient said, "Yes, that works for me." Claire wrote down this short dialogue in her notebook. She wrote more sentences like, "Can you spell your name, please?" and "Please arrive 10 minutes early for your appointment." Every evening, Claire practiced these sentences with her husband, Andrew. They took turns pretending to be the patient and the receptionist. Claire would answer the phone and say, "Good afternoon, this is Green Hill Clinic. How can I help you?" Andrew would reply, "I would like to book an appointment." They practiced different situations every night. After 2 weeks, Claire felt more confident. One day at work, a new patient walked in and said, "I have a headache and need to see the doctor." Claire answered, "Let me check the schedule. We have an opening at 11 a.m. today. Would you like to wait?" The patient said yes, and Claire handed him the form to fill out. After the patient left the doctor's room, he thanked Claire for being kind and helpful. This made Claire feel proud. She knew that her hard work and practice had helped her do her job better. Listening to real conversations, writing them down, and speaking them out loud had made her English stronger. You can do the same. If you work at a shop, a clinic, a delivery job, or any other place, try to listen to real English stories about your work. Write down new words and phrases. Use those words to write your own sentences. Practice them with someone in your family. Speak out loud every day. The more you practice, the more confident you will become. Practice does not have to be long. Even 10 or 15 minutes a day is helpful. You can listen while cooking, cleaning, or walking. Try to repeat the sentences out loud. This helps your brain remember them better. Writing the words and sentences helps your memory even more. Also, do not worry about making mistakes. Mistakes are normal when learning a new language. Just keep going. Every mistake is a chance to learn something new. When you correct a mistake, you remember the right way more clearly. Be patient and kind with yourself. Learning takes time, but you will improve with practice. You can also write a short story about your day in English. Try to use the new words you heard in your listening practice. For example, if you learned the word appointment, write a sentence like, "Today, I made an appointment with the dentist." This helps you remember the word better. Over time, your writing will improve too. Learning English with real stories is powerful. It helps you learn how people speak in daily life. It teaches you the right words to use in different situations. It helps you write better sentences, and it helps you speak more clearly and with more confidence. Keep listening, keep writing, and keep speaking. You will see good results. You will feel proud of yourself, just like Emma, Thomas, and Claire. Thank you for listening to today's episode. We hope these simple stories and examples helped you understand how listening, writing, and speaking can work together to improve your English. Remember, small steps every day can lead to big progress. Just like Emma, Thomas, and Claire, you can also build your skills with practice and patience. Keep listening, keep writing down what you learn, and keep speaking with others. We believe in you. You are doing a great job. See you in the next episode. Take care.